Andrea, she did a good job at first, man. She just read that information. I was hoping that people went through y'all. You know, whenever you have a little bio and you talk about the stuff that you've done over 20 years, it sounds like more than what it really is. So, but you did a really nice job reading that and communicating that. So thank you. Wow, Detroit. You know, I do a lot of traveling, and very seldom. It's been a while since I had an opportunity to come home and see my peeps and our folk and just chat with you and talk with you. So I'm really excited about being here. When Ms. Bowen calls and says, I need you to come somewhere, I'm like, yes, ma'am, I'm there. A long time ago, many years ago, before the youth board started in Michigan, there were a handful of folk who got together in Lansing and began the process of the youth boards, the MYOI, you know, a lot of that stuff, the meetings, I don't know if you guys call them FCRs anymore, but the permanency meetings where youth have a voice in talking about what they need. So all of that work started a while ago, and that was some of the work that I was involved in initially here in Michigan. And it's encouraging and exciting to kind of see the progress that it's made over the years, to see Ms. Coleman and just some of the old faces of those of us who struggled in the beginning. You know, it's not easy taking a big, multi-million-dollar child welfare system and changing it and getting that system to do things differently. That takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And a lot of times it takes so much time that the people who you start with, oftentimes they're not with you when it's all said and done. And some of us have our lives and we're going to do different things. But it's really encouraging to see MYOI doing its thing and making a difference in the lives of young people. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm not going to talk and spend a whole lot of time, but most of my work with the Annie, so the Annie E. Casey Foundation is one of the largest philanthropic foundations in the nation. And we have about a $3 billion endowment. And what that means is that we have monies that are set aside and you take the interest off of the money. So when you have billions of dollars, not millions, but billions, now I ain't got that kind of money. So just so y'all know. But so when you have a lot of money, you can just take the interest and never have to touch that money. And see, those are some of the secrets that the wealthy and the rich know about that we got to learn about. Learning how to manage your money. And so when your social workers are talking to you about saving and you're not trying to hear it, it's really important that you understand the power of money. But anyway, so the foundation has these billions of dollars, and off of the interest of those monies, they use that money to help cities and communities and children type efforts and issues. So the Annie Casey Foundation helps to train, and it helps to provide technical assistance and support and money to different places around the country so that those systems can change and make the necessary adjustments that it needs to make in order to help young people. So part of my work at the Annie Casey Foundation is working with most of your urban jurisdictions. So I work in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, all of Cleveland, Detroit. And so the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because a lot of what you're dealing with and a lot of what you're experiencing, there are a lot of young people around the country who are experiencing the same thing. And so part of what I try to do, and part of what our work is involved in doing, is how do you make these systems better for young people and for families? So my work and what I do is helping public systems change and helping to improve the process and the system and the services that young people receive in child welfare. I kind of just want to talk about 2 or 3 things, and then I'm going to get out of the way. I want to talk to you about, or you probably already know this, but did you know that some of the most successful people in this country have been in foster care?
Yes.
Who do you know that was in foster care that's very successful?
Me. Jody.
Who's that?
Saba. Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy.
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe.
Michelle Matthews. Alice White.
Judge Matthews.
Yeah. You know, did you know that? Yeah. Tom of Domino's Pizza, the founder of Domino's Pizza.
What?
The founder of Domino's Pizza, Tom Moynihan, was once in foster care. Eddie Murphy was once in foster care. Steve Jobs, one of the most successful businessmen that this century that has seen, was in foster care. The gentleman who created the iPhone.
You signed it?
Relative placement. A person that left his home and had to live with relatives. Some of the things that many of you have been through. Barack Obama. Yeah, Barack Obama grew up with his grandparents because he couldn't stay with his mom. The reason why I'm sharing this is because no matter where you start out in life, if you have the right support and the right mindset, there's nothing that you can't do. There have been a lot of successful people who were once sitting exactly where you're sitting today that has gone on to be successful, make a lot of money, and make a big impact in the world. Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey was sexually molested.
What?
Oprah Winfrey had a child when she was a teenager and had an abortion. Oprah Winfrey experimented with crack cocaine. Oprah Winfrey is one of the most successful, richest black women that this country has ever seen. There are a lot of people who are sitting or who have sat right where you're sitting, who have gone on to make a lot of money and be very successful. The question then becomes, well, how did they do it, Mr. Harris? You know, how is it that these people, whether it be Ice-T, whether it be John Lennon, one of the most famous Beatles, rock and roller, whether it be Malcolm X, I mean, people who have started out with a lot of challenges, a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, but went on to make a lot of money and be very successful. And oftentimes, wherever I go around the country, there's this sense that because I've been in foster care, because I didn't grow up with my mom or my dad, because I'm really depressed or going through a lot of problems in my life right now, that there's really not hope for me to be successful. And that is not true. And the reason why wherever I go, when I talk to young people about their journey in foster care, I talk to them about the reality of them being greater than they ever could dream of, but it's going to take a couple of things. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. And it's hard when you're young because some of these things you've heard before, but if you don't pay attention to what I'm getting ready to share with you, you're going to have challenges. And I don't say that to frighten you. I have two young people, two children myself, and each time my children don't follow directions and instructions, they create problems for themselves. And so one of the most important things that's going to help you be successful in life is following instructions. I'm going to let that sit for a second. Because at your age and what you've been through, you need information. You need guidance to help give you the blueprint, the action steps, the direction that you need to take that can result in you being successful. You're not going to, that's not going to just naturally come to you. That isn't something that you can just buy. That's something that you have to position yourself for in order to receive. Directions and instructions are critical for young people in foster care. The other part is no excuses. No excuses. We all know that it is not easy growing up, going through a situation where maybe your parents were on drugs. Maybe you haven't seen your brothers or your sisters or your siblings. We know that's painful And we know that that is not easy to deal with. But if you want to ball, if you want to get it popping, if you want to be a person who achieves and accomplishes great things, you can't let the mistakes and the pain be excuses for you not to excel. No excuses. And so when we look at the Oprah Winfrey's, the Tyler Perry was also molested when he was a child. Multi-millionaire now. So whether you were sexually abused, physically abused, grew up poor, don't know your mom, don't know your dad, there are many instances in this country of people who come from the same experiences that you have, and they were able to succeed and accomplish great things. So if you're a smart young person, if I'm you, I'm saying, so I want to know what they did, so I can be aware of what they did, so that maybe I can take similar steps to accomplish my goals. Not that you may want to necessarily do what they've done, but a wise person always studies other great people. That's just intelligent, right? So, following instructions, not making excuses, and turning negatives into positives. That's what I want to talk to you today about. Following instructions, no excuses, and turning negatives into positives. Now that's easier said than done, we know that. But when you think about foster care and young people in care, you know, I was looking at some statistics not long ago. We look at a lot of statistics at the Annie Casey Foundation. We look at data, statistics, technology, because that gives you a big picture around how other people are impacted by experiences and services. And the data that I saw showed that about 280,000 young people exit foster care every year. And out of that 280 young people, 53% typically wind up going back to their parents. That means that half of the young people typically are going to wind up going back to the community, back to their parents. 16% went back to relatives. So that means that 59%, close to 60% of the young people in foster care usually are going to go back to the communities that they come from. Now, that's not a bad thing. Hopefully, if you make that decision and you go back to your neighborhood, or back to live with your parent, or back to stay with a relative or someone who you have a close relationship with, hopefully you've gotten some lessons and some experiences while you were away that can help you continue to accomplish your goals. But it's interesting that close to 60% of all of the young people that agencies take out of their neighborhoods and take from their families go back to their families. And so when you think about those decisions that young people make, I think part of what we learn as adults who do this work is that, you know, oftentimes no matter what a young person has been through, they still love their family. They still want to be associated with their family. Now, the key to that is being able to be strong enough and smart enough so that if you go back amongst your community and around your family, you're not going to make the same mistakes that, what? They made, you made. That takes a lot of self-discipline and self-control. When we think about being in a neighborhood and going around people who you care about, and oftentimes maybe they may not be making good choices and decisions. So at the end of the day, your decisions and your choices are going to reflect your life, whether it has to do with your mom, your sister, your brother, your cousins, your relatives. Your choices, your decisions are critical. And if you make the right choice and the right decisions, then oftentimes the outcome is going to be best for you. The instruction you follow, listen to this, is very important. The instruction you follow and who you listen to determines the future you create. Let me say that again. The instructions that you follow and who you decide to listen to determines the future that you create for yourself. So, one of the first questions that I often ask young people is, who influences your decisions? Who's the closest person in your life right now that you listen to, that you take advice from? Okay, that's good. But think about that for a minute, because who you take instructions from oftentimes will determine what type of outcome and future you have. So who do you have in your life that you can go to, that you can rely on, that you know that no matter what, they're going to be there for you? You've got to answer. Just think about it. These are just questions that I'm raising with you to think about. And if you don't have those kind of people in your life, the next question, because for some it may be, well, Mr. Harris, I don't really have a lot of people in my life that I can rely on. Or I don't know a lot of people that I have confidence in. Because that may be the reality for some. And for some of you, you may have someone in your life. I heard some folks say God. That's a powerful testimony to say that, I rely on God. Or I have a faith that I can rely on principles and scriptures that can guide me. But the question is, who do you turn to? Who do you rely on? Who do you have confidence in? Well, yeah, God. That's important.
Just say family.
Well, let me tell you something about this faith in God, because I think that's critical, right? And everyone may have different faiths and different beliefs. But you know that God doesn't usually give you anything, right? God typically will give you some directions and instructions. And if you follow the instructions and directions, then you get what you ask for. It goes back to what? Instructions and directions. And for many young people, because of what you've been through, because of your experience, sometimes it's hard to listen to adults and follow instructions and directions. What you got to be careful of is not to fall into that category, because if you fall into the category of shutting down because of anger, because of emotions, because of not having faith in other people who let you down, then you shut down your opportunity to grow. Because we've already talked about in the beginning of this conversation that the key to success is what? Following instructions. So you gotta, when you have your quiet moment, whenever you get alone and you're just thinking about your life, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, where you want to be at, the first thing you should know from this conversation is that there is no stopping you if you really are serious. If you are focused and determined, whether you've been sexually abused, physically abused, homeless, on drugs, there are similar people in the world who've been away from their families, taken out of their homes, taken through courts, and turned out to make an exceptional life for themselves. So you gotta first accept that although my situation as a child hasn't been the best, there's still hope for me, and I can still accomplish my goals. That's the first. Number two becomes, how do I now get the information, the instructions and directions that I need in order to go where I want to go? And for many young people in care who've been taken from their families, oftentimes because of the pain and the trauma that they've been through, they reject adults and they reject other people because they don't want them close to them. And when they do that, they cut off their what? Their resources, yeah. And they limit themselves from being able to get the direction and instructions. So when you're 18, 16, 17, 13, 14, whatever your age is, that's an age where you're supposed to be absorbing information. and learning about new information, new things, so that you can begin to put your life together and decide what it is you want to do. So if I could give you one piece of advice, it's be open to instructions and directions, especially at your age. Because it's only through instructions and directions that your future will be impacted. That make sense? Now, why do some young people oftentimes have difficulty with that? Well, for a lot of reasons. Maybe some young people have trusted adults and they were let down, taken advantage of. And so now it's hard for them to trust, hard for them to really be open, especially to people that they don't know, right? So if you fall in that category, you got to work real hard to, first of all, learn from those mistakes and learn about what happened when that adult wasn't there for you, or maybe even took advantage of you. But you can't stop and shut off input from adults as a result of that experience. And we know that's easier said than done. But in order for you to take a negative and turn it into a positive, and that's the other piece that I wanted to talk to you about, you have to be able to look at your life, and for some of us, or some of you, it's painful and difficult, but if you're going to go to the next level, if you're going to be that young person that doesn't allow the system and the circumstances of life to crush you and stop you, many young people in foster care, when they age out and graduate, wind up, can I be honest?
Yep.
Can Mr. Harris just talk to y'all straight up, or do you want me to give you the PG version?
Be real. Straight
You want
up.
it straight up? Okay. Because some of y'all are sleeping, and it's okay. But if you're sleeping, you're not hearing. And if you're not hearing, you're not getting information. And if you're not getting information, you're not getting direction and instructions that hopefully can help you. I'm not trying to preach to you, counsel you. I'm just sharing some information that I've learned over 20 years, having worked in many urban jurisdictions around this country. So, when you think about the information and the direction that you need for your life, you gotta be open. One of the biggest challenges that I see with young people in foster care, and I don't blame you, it's not your fault, but you gotta do better if you wanna succeed. You gotta work on your demeanor. What do I mean by demeanor? You gotta work on your nonverbal, right? I can say, I don't wanna talk to you, or I can go like this, right? The nonverbal means I don't want to talk, or I can say I don't want to talk. When you walk into a room, you say something about yourself to other people. How you dress, how you look, how you talk. That's not going nowhere, y'all. Even though you were in foster care and things have happened to you, people will still judge you based upon how you carry yourself. And so if you're a young person, and you need instructions and directions and support and love, you want to work on your nonverbal. Because if I'm an older person and I can help you, and I see one young person who's friendly and open, and another one who got an attitude, head always down. Now, you may have justifiable cause to be upset. It's real easy for someone who hasn't been through what many of you have been through to say you should have a good attitude. But you said keep it real, right? Outside in the real world, the reality of it is that the average person is not familiar with foster care. And most of them don't want to see a young person struggle, but if you don't have the strength and the disposition and the discipline to be able to project yourself and portray yourself in a certain way, people, listen closely, people who can help you won't want to be around you. So you shut down and you cut off resources because of attitude or disposition. Happens every day. Now, not saying that you don't have a right to be upset, not saying that you haven't been through a lot of pain.